Leslie Perella's phone rang just minutes after her husband Hernan left for his landscaping job. What she heard on the other end was chaos. Voices shouting her husband's among them. ICE agents had sideswiped his vehicle, smashed his window, and forced him out of his truck. They refused to identify themselves. He was injured as they arrested him. Leslie called an ambulance. He was taken to Melrose Wakefield Hospital. At the hospital, neither his wife nor his attorney was allowed to see him. The exits were locked. They were not permitted even to witness his transfer as he was taken by ICE to the Burlington Detention Center. Hernan has no criminal record. He is a caretaker for his elderly mother. He has lived and worked in this country for nearly a decade. His loving wife, Leslie, is an American citizen. Juan Palacio Morales, a 49-year-old man from Colombia, lives in Lowell with their 3-month-old baby. On September 8th, ICE arrested Juan outside of his home. They told him he was wanted for a 2007 criminal charge and that he missed his immigration hearing. But Juan arrived in the U.S. in 2022. He claimed asylum at the border and was legally allowed to enter this country. He has a valid work permit, no criminal history, and has followed the legal pathway, always showing up for his check-in appointments. His next immigration check-in date was scheduled for April 2026. Clearly, ICE had the wrong person, and even Juan told him his name and showed them his ID. ICE abducted him anyway. They brought him here to Burlington, where he was forced to wear a wristband with someone else's information on it. Juan told agents here in Burlington that he is not that person, but as he would later tell his wife in a phone call, no one here cared and no one listened. Without allowing him to call his wife or a lawyer, ICE transferred him from Burlington to Buffalo to Texas to California and back to Arizona, where it's believed he is still imprisoned today. Almost every week, when I attend rallies at the Burlington ICE office, I hear heartbreaking stories exactly like these. So what motivated me to organize our own Yom Kippur vigil on this, our holiest day of the year, is that our country's cruel treatment of immigrants is a clear violation of Jewish law. More than that, our tradition clearly states that the only way to live up to the expectations of this holy day is for us to stand up for their rights. But when I published a flyer about this vigil on the Jewish Families of Greater Boston's Facebook page, this immediately set off a firestorm of controversy. Many applauded and most applauded this effort, but some were angry that I, as a rabbi, was choosing this issue to demonstrate about. Someone who I will call Allie wrote, "She," meaning me, "doesn't organize any vigil for her own Jewish people on October 7th and is using this holiday for politics instead of asking people to donate for the poor and orphans. What she's doing, twisting the Yom Kippur, is a shame, and why not use her power to pray for the hostages and end the war? It's a Jewish group and a post for Yom Kippur." So why did I choose to organize this vigil on Yom Kippur today and speak about it today? What does the issue of rounding up innocent law-abiding people, incarcerating them in horrific conditions, not knowing what their fate will be, traumatizing them and their families, denying them due process, have to do with us, particularly on this holiest day of the year? Why didn't I choose a Jewish topic to speak about instead of people like Hernan and Juan and others like them? To Allie and the other naysayers, I would like to reply. Read the words of this morning's Torah and Haftarah portions. Listen to what the rabbis have to say on this topic. Remember Jewish history. To be a Jew means having compassion and empathy, not just for our own people, but for all those who suffer injustice. This morning our Torah portion challenged us with these words: I have set before you this day life and good, or death and evil, blessing or curse. Choose life, that you and others may live. The prophet Isaiah is specifically directing us on this day that this holy day means nothing if it doesn't motivate us to stand up for the poor and oppressed. These are his words, not mine. Is this the fast I choose? A day for self-affliction? Is not this the fast I desire? To break the chains of injustice, to untie the cords of the yoke, to let the oppressed go free, to break every cruel chain? If you remove the yoke from your midst, the pointing finger, the malicious speech, if you offer yourselves to the hungry and satisfy the needs of the afflicted, then your light shall shine in the darkness, and you shall be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of streets to dwell in. Leviticus 19 commands us, do not stand idly by the blood of your neighbor. Deuteronomy 10 commands us, love the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. I will quote again, as I did last night, the words of the famous Rabbi Hillel, one of the most important and influential rabbis in our history. If I am not for myself, who will be for me? But if I am only for myself, what am I? And if not now, when? Of course, we pray for the hostages and our own people on this day and every day. But if we are only for ourselves, what are we? What does the violent roundup of law-abiding immigrants, many of whom have followed every legal path, who work hard, who fled violence, have to do with us? This does not just resonate with us as a biblical or rabbinic issue. We have seen this happen with our own eyes when bigotry goes unchallenged, either while we were alive or shortly after, before we were born. Shalva Clements, sitting right here, was born in a forest outside Warsaw after her parents escaped the Nazi roundups. Almost all of her husband Chaim's family were taken away and killed in the Holocaust. Werner Salinger, who spoke to us last year, remembers waking up to shattered glass on Kristallnacht in Berlin. Jewish stores destroyed, neighbors rounded up simply for being Jews. Agnes Bales, whose son is sitting back there, a longtime temple member, was just a girl in Budapest when her parents were taken from their home. She and her brother watched her mother being taken away, leaving 2 children to survive alone, 2 young children, guilty of nothing but being a Jew. How many of us, myself included, had relatives who were taken away, who perished in the Holocaust for the crime of being Jewish? How many of us have images burned into our minds of newsreels and books which we've read or seen throughout our lives, describing the horror of what unchecked bigotry did to our people? Less than a century ago, the world stood silent as this happened to us. The non-Jewish neighbors stood by and did nothing. Almost no one lifted a finger or raised their voice to speak out, either out of fear, because they felt that this didn't concern them personally, or it wasn't their issue. Or worse, they believed that the rhetoric that the Jews were less than human, they were a menace to society and needed to be removed. I often think, if I were a non-Jew in Nazi Germany watching my Jewish neighbors being ridiculed, abused, and rounded up, what would I have done? What would we have hoped others would have done to help us? When Hernan's car window was smashed, my mind remembered the Jews whose store windows were shattered on Kristallnacht. When I hear about mothers and fathers in hiding, fearful of sending their children to school, afraid of what will happen every time they step out the door or hear someone knocking, I think of Anne Frank. When I saw two 12-year-old boys sitting alone on the steps of the ICE office, unsure if they would ever see their mother again, I thought of Agnes and her brother, and all those who watched helplessly, whose hearts were torn apart as their families were taken away. So what does this have to do with us? Everything. Why is this our Jewish issue? Because we have experienced this ourselves. We know what it's like. Yom Kippur is our day of reckoning. No one was for us in Nazi Germany, Poland, Hungary, and many other countries during the Holocaust. Is this the fate we want for others? What are we if we only think of ourselves, sit by and watch others suffer as we did? Now is our time to stand up against bigotry and oppression, to do what we can to help unlock the chains and help the oppressed go free. Unlike during the Holocaust, this time we have the power, so far, of free speech. We have the power of social media. We have the advantage of knowing what can happen if hate, bigotry, and intolerance is left unchecked. The Torah portion which our ancestors chose for us to read today tells us that standing up for the oppressed is not too hard. It's not in the heaven or beyond the sea. It's right here. It's in our mouths and in our hearts, and we can do it. Isaiah warns us that our fast is meaningless if we leave this sanctuary not feeling the pain of others enough to motivate us to do something and to make a difference. When I reached out to Leslie, sitting distraught outside the ICE office, not knowing the fate of her beloved husband, I and many others were able to show her that she was not alone. Each of us has this power to drive just 3 minutes down the street and be present to others, to show up, to advocate, to care. So what do Leslie and Hernan have to do with me? They are human beings, also as the Torah teaches, created in the image of God, deserving of the same dignity and rights we all claim for ourselves. So to those naysayers, I say, our Torah, our prophets, our rabbis, our tradition, our history, our values, they all lead us here to this moment on this day. President Kennedy famously said, "For those to whom much is given, much is required." We have been given a unique opportunity. We are right up the street from an institution which is actively detaining, traumatizing, and separating innocent people. We, who are neighbors, have the particular sacred obligation to stand up for the vulnerable, to break the chains of injustice, to comfort the afflicted. May this Yom Kippur inspire us to do more than sit here reading words. May it inspire us to put our faith into action. You can choose to agree with me or not. You can choose to stand with me or not. Today is all about making the choice to choose life or death, the blessing or the curse. But as God writes down and seals the fate, not just of us, but of all human beings as the sun sets tonight, let's all do God's work to help others be written in the book of life. By standing for Hernan, Leslie, Khan, and the many thousands of people who are unlawfully being detained, traumatized, imprisoned, deported, we are also standing in memory of the 6 million and the millions of others during the Holocaust and all those who have been abused and treated with cruelty because of their identity. Let this day be the day we live out our faith at the ICE office and declare, never again is now. Amen.